Congratulations! You're on the way to becoming a teacher, and one of the pathways to achieving your goal is completing the edTPA, Teacher Performance Assessment. edTPA is a student-centered, multiple-measure assessment of teaching, which includes lesson plans, videos of teaching, teaching artifacts such as handouts and slides, student work samples, and written explanations, rationales, and reflections. In addition to reading your content-specific handbook, rubric-level progressions, and the Making Good Choices Guide, we've put together some tips to help guide you through the process. Tip number 1, communicate with your cooperating teacher as early as possible. They will be a valuable resource to help you understand the context for learning within the classroom. Your cooperating teacher will be able to share the students' strengths and needs to help guide your decisions in planning what lessons to teach, how to differentiate instruction based on their needs, create appropriate assessments, and ways to increase student voice and interaction during instruction. Tip number 2, find the right time in the school year to begin the process. It is highly recommended that you plan ahead and begin edTPA preparation prior to your internship semester. Read the entire handbook and all supporting documents for your content area, including the key decisions charts, summary and evidence charts, and rubrics, so you are confident in the tasks you will complete. Make sure you know your students well before you begin the planning task and teaching your lessons. Your familiarity with the students' context and where they are in the curriculum will inform your instruction and provide ample material for your written commentaries later in the process. Tip number 3, read the Making Good Choices Guide. This support guide will act as a reference for you as you develop artifacts and commentaries for your edTPA assessment. It is not a substitute for the handbook, but will help you understand the language of the tasks, think about how to plan, instruct, assess, and reflect on student learning. This is where you will find the key decisions charts that will be very helpful. The Making Good Choices Guide is a very useful document. Tip number 4, plan, plan, plan. Time management is critical to the successful completion of edTPA. Begin preparing and planning as soon as possible. Do not procrastinate. The edTPA requires 3 to 5 lessons from a subject-specific learning segment. You can create your own or adapt lessons already created to meet your students' needs. Be sure to align the lessons to standards and that you know the central focus, learning targets, and academic language that will make your instruction accessible for all students. Academic language is a critical component in each of the 3 tasks you will complete: planning, instruction, and assessment. These areas will help you assess student learning and allow you to clearly explain evidence of learning in your written commentary. Tip number 5, quantify and qualify. Include a mix of quantified and qualified evidence in your commentaries. Showing both types of evidence will create a full understanding of your students' learning. For example, when teaching a unit on fractions, know the number of English language learners in your class and be able to articulate how you modified instruction based on this knowledge of your students. Then present assessment data. Maybe 21 out of 25 of your students were able to reduce fractions. Then provide student background information relevant to student learning goals that helps the scorers understand how other factors impacted instruction and student mastery of this learning target. If you gather both types of evidence, you will have a wealth of information and evidence to reference in your writing as you justify your teaching choices. Tip number 6, read the commentary prompts and rubrics before videotaping. Knowing what the prompts expect will help you plan lessons that address commentary topics and generate evidences to support your written commentary. For example, think of ways to show how you establish a positive learning environment, how you consider the needs and backgrounds of your students, and how you engage students in using the language functions of your lessons. These are often invisible teaching practices that you will need to make visible to the scorers. Be intentional about how you establish these teaching practices. Then, when you are ready to write, you will already have concrete evidence and won't have to hunt for it in your lesson and video. Tip number 7, obtain videotaping permission before you begin. Ask your instructor and cooperating teacher the best way to obtain permission for videotaping. The earlier you send permission forms out, the more time you will have to contact families who have not turned them in. Also, prepare a Plan B for students you do not have permission to record. Tip number 8. Videotape more than you think you will need. Things are going to go wrong during a recording, and some lessons will be more successful than others. So the more you record, the better. It is helpful to practice videotaping prior to beginning the edTPA process so that you and your students can become comfortable with the distraction. You are also encouraged to videotape all lessons in your teaching segment to ensure that you have plenty of options as you choose your 15-minute segment to submit. Tip number 9. Plan seating arrangements and camera placement before videotaping. In order to accommodate various student needs and also those who have not turned in their permission forms to be recorded, you will need to be intentional about the seating arrangement in your classroom. You will want to check for visibility, proximity, and audio quality, and rearrange as needed if any of these qualities are an issue. Keep in mind, students that you do not have permission to record should not be visible or heard on the video. It may be helpful to map out several seating and camera placement options to try before you are ready to record your lessons. Tip number 10. Focus on student interactions during videotaping. By focusing on student voices rather than your own, you allow the scorers to really see what your students know and can do. Your video is an opportunity to focus on your students, and in your written commentary, you are able to justify your teaching choices and fill in the blanks of what isn't seen in the video. This is also a great opportunity to get feedback from your cooperating teacher about the ratio of teacher talk to student talk in your lessons. Don't be afraid to let your students' voices be heard. Their discussion and responses will be valuable evidences to write about in your commentary. Completing the edTPA assessment will make you think critically about what you do well as a teacher and what you can do better. Make the best instructional choices you can based on your knowledge of your students, and make sure those choices are reflected in your video and written commentaries. You are encouraged to plan ahead, work steadily and regularly to complete this digital portfolio. Utilize the resources available to you, including your instructors, cooperating teacher, and UNCW online resources, as well as face-to-face student work sessions held on campus. Utilizing these resources and thoughtful planning of instruction will save you time for revisions and edits to represent your best thinking and teaching when you are ready to submit your portfolio.